our very own celluloid queen. And she has spoken here for Curious Histories before on matters as diverse as film noir, the role of Native Americans in the Hollywood films, screwball comedies was another one. You've done Howard Pressburger for us. You've done all sorts. But tonight, Linsay is going to talk to us about wartime films, wartime kind of propaganda-ish films that celebrated and enticed women into the domestic war effort in Britain. But there's more to it, far more to it than what I've just said. And Linsay, now do take the floor,
Okay,
and we shall learn more.
Okay, thank you.
Do you need a mic?
I don't think so. Is this all right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, am I not pressing it?
No, it's coming. It's coming.
Okay. Okay. So, at the start of the war, cinemas were closed because it was felt that so many people in one room would be kind of dangerous when the bombs started to fall. But, can you see from there, am I right?
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, this is good. Don't forget, I've already seen this several times.
Well, everyone's a critic, I guess.
Our audience.
So at the start of the war, cinemas were closed, but the government soon realised that actually they're just going to be invaluable for propaganda. This is the Empire Leicester Square in 1941. You can see when the cinemas reopened, it's a popular pastime. If you look at the left, I don't often use graphs actually, but if you look at the left, that very kind of steep incline up is between 1939 and 1946 is the very peak, 45 was just under it. And in 1945, there were 1.5 billion American visits to the cinema in the UK. And that meant that 60% of the UK population was going to the cinema every single week on average. Now obviously between 1939 and 1945, that audience is going to be principally made up of women because men are often serving, and apparently going to the cinema wasn't a thing that older people necessarily did a lot. So the audience is predominantly women. It's about 70% women kind of throughout this period. Two big things happened for women at the start of the war. One was conscription. They could be drafted into work. And the other one was kind of greater opportunities for sexual freedom. And the films kind of responded to that in a couple of different ways. But first of all, if we look at conscription, so it was women were drafted and then they had a choice. So they could go into the land army, they could go into munitions or other kind of vital war work, they could join the services, they could become a nurse. And so the films kind of started to look at how do we get women to want to, I mean, they were drafted, they had to, but how do we get women to kind of go into this with good grace and to do it with good morale? So I called this talk Realism and Tinsel, and that was a phrase used by this man, who's Michael Balcon, the biggest name in the British film industry at the time. He ran Beaumont Pictures, he ran Gainsborough Pictures, which you might know they did kind of costume dramas, period dramas, and ran Ealing Studios and later made Ealing Films. And so he used the term realism and tinsel before the war to kind of look at the difference between British cinema, which was realistic, and Hollywood cinema, which was the tinsel, the kind of the glamour. But during the war, it came to mean, yes, there will be propaganda films, but to get the women in to see them, we've got to offer something else. We've got to sweeten that pill with a little bit of tinsel. So whether that's romance or adventure, something like that. Before the war, the last word in what you could see in the film was the British Board of Film Censorship, still in existence, now called the British Board of Film Classification. And if you go to the cinema now, you will still see their certificate before the film opens. When they were the last word, they were very concerned with decency. So they would and they did censor whatever they didn't like. So for instance, some things they censored were bridesmaids in their underwear before a wedding, or a fat woman on a vibrating machine, or a a man who said, Liverpool, what a weird place to commit adultery. That got cut as well. But when the war comes along, the last word now goes to the Ministry of Information, MOI, which operated from Senate House, which you probably all know was the model for Ministry of Love in George Orwell's 1984. And so the Ministry of Information, they were concerned with kind of propaganda and information. They were much less concerned about decency or morality. Their interest was morale. And so they would let things through in terms of kind of sexual permissiveness or other kind of limits. They would let things through that the BBFC would have had an absolute kind of conniption fit about. And so we see this in films as diverse as Brief Encounter.
It's the accents that I just can't understand. Yeah, I like those sort of black and whites and stuff, but that I just can't stand that film.
I disagree.
We can have this debate at the end.
But what this film's about, for anyone who hasn't seen it or doesn't know it, is that Celia Johnson plays Laura. She's a very kind of middle-class suburban housewife. She's got that kind of life. Her kids are grown up, but she falls in love with a handsome stranger, and the possibility that she might have an affair outside of marriage, might commit adultery, is there kind of throughout the film. And the BBFC before the war would have been quite aghast at this. This is quite late on. This is 1945, but it's in development from 1943, 1944, and so those wartime things are there as well. Laura in the film does not take up the opportunity for greater sexual freedom, but this woman certainly does. This is The Wicked Lady, also from 1945, and this is Margaret Lockwood, and she plays a very wicked lady. She steals her cousin's fiancé on the day that they are due to be married, and she marries him instead. It's not a very happy marriage for her, because once she's won him, she doesn't really want him. And also he won't pay her gambling debts, and so she decides to disguise herself as a highwayman, takes to the roads, commits crimes, meets James Mason, takes up every opportunity for extramarital sex with James Mason. Obviously this is implied in the film, they don't show it. And then they commit crimes and then they kill people. This was a Gainsborough film, the studio that made those costume dramas. So again, the gradual loosening of the kind of strictures around kind of sex and morality. The Ministry of Information didn't really make their own feature films, but what they did make was documentaries. So even if you go to see The Wicked Lady, you're also seeing some of these kind of good for you documentaries that are coming from the Ministry of Information and that are about propaganda. So one documentary they made is called Five and Under, and this is about the government-sponsored, the state-run nurseries that are going to allow women to go to work. There is kind of government-run nurseries, and Five and Under is about that. Jane Brown Changes Her Job is a short film about Jane Brown changing her job. She's got a nice job as a secretary in a law firm or something like that, and she goes to work in a munitions factory, and it's better for everybody concerned. So constantly these messages are coming through. In terms of fiction feature films, so these were very much left to the studios, and that's really the focus of what I'm going to look at tonight. So films where women are going to work. The Gentle Sex is, we follow kind of 6 or 7 women who join the Auxiliary Training Service, the Women's Army. The Lamp Still Burns is about a woman like Jane Brown who gives up her job as an architect to become a nurse. And Millions Like Us, we follow a group of women who go to work in a munitions factory. And we're going to look in a bit of detail at Millions Like Us in a bit. But I'm also wanting to look at films that look at women in different situations. So both Went the Day Well and Great Day are looking at kind of women in villages. They're on the home front. They're not necessarily in factories. They're not necessarily in the land army. But what they are doing is they're doing what they need to do to kind of for the war effort at home. And I'm also going to look at 2,000 Women, which again is slightly different, but we're following a group of women, not quite 2,000 of them, but they are interred in an internment camp in France, run by the Nazis. I say internment camp, it looks like a chateau, and I think in 1942, 1943, when this film was written, people maybe didn't have much of an idea about what kind of internment camps could be or would be. So I've got clips later from both Went the Day Well and 2000 Women, but we're going to look first of all at Millions Like Us. And Millions Like Us was slightly different because it was directly commissioned by the Ministry of Information. It's set in a munitions factory, and when women were given the choice during the draft, they weren't really opting for these factories. It was hard work, it was noisy work, and so the Ministry of Information wanted a film that showed life in these factories. And also the morale in the factories wasn't very high, so they wanted a kind of reflection of that as well. This film is very much kind of talking to the audience about this is the kind of work that you could be doing. And to just underline that at the start, they go through the normal roster of stars who are in the film, and it ends up with, and millions like you in Millions Like Us. So right from the start, it's very much saying, this is a world that you could see yourself in. And so this is the realism, this is all these films are set in the contemporary world, apart from the costume dramas, but they're set in the contemporary world. What all these films have in common that I'm going to look at is a kind of cross-class coming together. And so this person at the right here is Celia, and it's her story really that we're going to follow in Millions Like Us. She's also got a sister called Phyllis, and Phyllis is one of those characters, so she is very much embracing the sexual freedom that the war might bring. Every time her dad comes home in the film, she's snogging somebody different on the doorstep. And she joins the ATS principally to kind of meet more soldiers because she snogged all the ones that she already knows. And she's that kind of character in a film where you're like, give us more Phyllis, we want to see more Phyllis. Because her sister Celia is a bit straight-laced, but it's Celia that we're following. So Celia gets drafted, goes to work in this munitions factory, but when she's thinking about her choices, so this is where the tinsel comes in Millions Like Us. For Celia, when she's thinking about her choices, she's thinking, oh, I could be a nurse, and then in her daydream, some handsome patient is falling in love with her. Or I could join the WAFs, and then some handsome airman is falling in love with her. So she's quite romantic about the idea, and this is, again, let's get women into the cinema, let's get them enjoying the films, and then the messages will come through. I'm going to show you a clip, but it's the end of the film, so I'm going to be quite coy about what's happened to Celia, but she's had a personal tragedy. And this is the end of the film. And it's quite a long clip. I want to show you one clip because part of the documentary realism of this film, it was filmed in a real factory, and you can just see the scale of what's going on. And also you can see that there are thousands and thousands of extras, and you know they're extras because they look right at the camera when it's passing them. So you'll see some of that. What's going to happen in the clip is this is lunchtime or dinner time. There's a massive works canteen, and they put on some entertainment. I say entertainment.
We can have a debate about that.
Yeah.
So
they put on some entertainment, and it's a singer, and there's going to be a sing-along. So this is what we're going to watch now. This is the end of Celia's story. story, and I apologise for the length of that clip, but I really wanted to show you the size of the factory. What that's saying about Celia's own story, because another message the Ministry of Information was keen to get over was everybody has to make sacrifices. And what that is saying about, to Celia is you can't afford to be an individual, you can't afford to have these individual feelings, you can't afford to wallow in your own sadness, because this factory needs to run, and you need to be here to help run it. And so her friends singing, her joining in the communal sing-along is, you're not an individual anymore, you're part of this collective, and you need to be brought back to the collective. It's actually, I think, very poignant as well, and that long kind of close-up on her face, I do find quite effective. So these films were often about groups of women. Great, hurrah, that didn't happen much before, it hasn't happened much since, so there's been a focus on groups of women. But what that tended to mean was often there wasn't character development. People weren't really individuals, you couldn't really see a character arc for this person becoming this kind of person. So often they were kind of a group of archetypes. And there was pretty much always a kind of working class, salt of the earth person. Does anybody recognise the woman with a gun? No? That's Thora Hird. I know it's pretty much against the law not to have Thora Hird in your film in the 40s. She's in a number of them. So working class salt of the earth. Generally there was two of them because they were generally had to be pals with each other. But there's also often a kind of head girl, a leader, an Enid Blyton type who's just like calm and makes things happen. And that's Phyllis Calvert above there. This woman is a kind of lady of the manor. So again, there's this cross-class, everybody pulling together notion in the films as well. Up top, we've got another blonde, working class salt of the earth. But the woman she's with on the corner, I don't know if you can quite see her, she's one of these kind of taking advantage of sexual opportunities kind of girls. She's a dancer in Paris. This is from 2000 Women, the one about the internment camp. She's a dancer in Paris, and one of her friends says to somebody else, she's the kind of woman, she can only get to sleep when she counts men jumping over a stile. We've got another kind of cross-class friendship at the bottom, that's Celia and her friend Jenny. And then in the big picture, we've got something again that was featured in these films, but often heavily coded. These two elderly women in the middle, very coded as lesbians, as kind of long-term companions. And they are, the actresses, Flora Robson is the tall one, and Muriel Aker is the little one. And this is from 2000 Women again, and part of the story of 2000 Women is that some British airmen have been shot down, and they're hiding out in this chateau internment camp, and some of the women are hiding them. And Flora Robson and Muriel Aker are two of the women who are doing that. And Flora Robson, definitely the dom in this situation, absolutely no doubt about it, says to Muriel, he'll have to have your bed, and you'll have to share mine. And there's just this little glimmer of slightly ecstatic okay that comes over Muriel Aker's face. And there are other kind of lesbian coded women in all these films as well. Again, they had to be heavily coded because this is the mid-1940s, but I think to a modern eye there's kind of no mistaking that is what's happening. So I'm going to talk about 2000 Women. This is this little Muriel Aker at the corner at the front there. I think this is a really interesting film, and so again, a whole host of archetypes. Thora Hird's in this one as well. And I'm going to show you a clip from this one, and what's happened is that, so there's a small group of women, like the head girl in her little coterie, who know about the airmen, but most of the women do not know about the airmen until Thora Hird spots them. And also, this small coterie of women know that one of them, a woman who wears a turtleneck, I'll point her out for you, is a Nazi spy. She's kind of part of the English contingent, but she is a Nazi spy. So let's watch that clip now.
Here, because it is believed that some British airmen who crashed in a bomber last night may have concealed themselves in this camp. Silence! You will remain here until the search is over.
That's amazing.
It's gone viral.
So,
Bevan, thank you.
so in that clip, like gossip or how women kind of share information, normally seen as a very bad thing, is here a very good thing. It's the aspect of women, that kind of trope about women, that enables that information to pass through, but also the information to kind of be stopped at a certain point. These films are getting darker, of the clips that I'm showing you, and the heroism is getting a bit is starting to amp up as well. But there's danger in this film. So the two elderly women, they are basically the reason why the airmen are in the house, because they heard the planes being shot down, and they defied the blackout to show a light, to show the British airmen where they could come, because it was so dark outside. And the Nazis find out about this, and at the end of the film, these two are sent to what in the film is called, they're sent to Germany, to a German punishment camp. And again, looking back at that with modern eyes, are these women being sent to their deaths? I'm going to take a little sidestep now. You mentioned Powell and Pressburger earlier, and they're my favourite British filmmakers. And they, I've said here, didn't get the memo because they carried on doing their own thing. The Ministry of Information was saying, we want realistic films. They're like, no thank you, we will continue to make poetry. We'll continue to make kind of beautiful films, and we're not really interested in your propaganda. I don't know how they got away with it, but they did. They weren't seen as... They didn't have a great reputation at the time. In fact, one of their films, The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, was deemed so kind of anti-patriotic, kind of negative propaganda that Churchill tried to get it banned, but couldn't. They first start working together. They're a pair, Michael Powell, who's English from Kent, and Emmerich Pressburger, who's an emigre from Hungary. They first started working together in 1939 on The Spy is Black, which is Spy in Black, which is the picture over on your left. And it stars Conrad Veidt, who in real life was an emigre from Germany, and he'd fled the Nazis. And he's playing opposite an English actress called Valerie Hobson. Now in this film, he is a spy, he is a Nazi spy, and she's very much on the other side. The sexual chemistry between these two people is absolutely incredible, and you can see that from that photo there. So
the rippling effect of the wind is enhancing that.
Very romantic. There's just sizzling chemistry between them, and so Powell and Pressburger not only have a sexy Nazi, but they make him quite sympathetic as well. So once he's unmasked as a spy, he's holding a room like this full of hostages, including a young mother with a baby, like quite a little baby. And he says, if anyone makes a noise, Henry's team have got guns on everybody, if anyone makes a noise, they will be shot. And the baby starts crying, and he says, like with this twinkle in his eye, with one exception. So, this very charming, sympathetic Nazi is in a film in 1939. It is a great movie. But Powell and Pressburger took one look at the chemistry between these two, and then the next year they were in another film together called Contraband, but this time he's Danish. Playing a Danish kind of skipper of a merchant navy vessel. And so it's fine for them to fall in love, and so they do. In 1943 they make a film called A Canterbury Tale, and it does involve, one of the main characters is a land girl, but actually what this film is about is really, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier actually, but what the Ministry of Information wanted films to do was to show how we fight, why we fight, and what we're fighting for. And this film is great, I think, in terms of what we're fighting for. So Canterbury and Canterbury Cathedral in particular is seen as this kind of symbol that England will abide And in the second picture, you see it is kind of shot on location in Canterbury, that there's lots of kind of bombed out buildings and empty ground, but the cathedral kind of abides, and that's really what that film is about. And the third Powell and Pressburger film, I mean, you might know better their films that were made after the war, like A Matter of Life and Death and The Red Shoes. That was those guys. But this is Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, and in it, the ideal kind of woman. This is how they're seeing women, or the main character is seeing women. The ideal woman is played kind of throughout time by one actress, Deborah Kerr. Anyway, that's Powell and Pressburger. It is a little off to the side, but I love them. I've got to talk about them. But back to the main thrust. This is another film that I'm very, very fond of, called Great Day. I might ask you about this because I don't know if this is true, but in Great Day, it's another village-based one. So it's the home front. The women are working on the home front, and it's a women's institute, and they've been deemed by the National Women's Institute to be a kind of typical women's institute. And so Eleanor Roosevelt is coming to visit the village. Did that help her?
It's plausible. It's not particularly plausible during wartime, but it is plausible.
Okay. We don't see her, but we see the preparations for this. And again, this is all focused on the women. The stars are listed as Eric Portman, who's the guy in the middle. He's also in Millions Like Us, and he's also in The Canterbury Tale. He was a very busy boy. But actually, he's not the main focus of this film. He's just the kind of biggest name star. But this film is all about the women working together collaboratively. They're working hard. They know what they're working for. It's not a very dramatic film like some of the other ones I've spoken about, but it's just so wonderful. There isn't room for Thora Hird in this one, but
There's always room for it.
sadly. But if you were obsessed with TV like I was in the 70s, you might well recognise Irene Handel.
Hey!
But the last film I'm going to talk about tonight is called Went the Day Well. And this is another village-based one. This is again 1943, 42, 43, one of those. And the story of this one is that a man who's been living in this village for 7 or 8 years, an Englishman, is actually a Nazi spy. And he's been placed there specifically to kind of plan and prepare for the Nazi invasion of Britain. It's 1942 it is actually. For the Nazi invasion of Britain. And it's going to kick off in this village. And so there are Nazi soldiers arrive, but they're dressed as, is it little engineers, the sappers, is that what they are? Sappers. They're dressed as sappers, but meant to be there on manoeuvres. But this ruse is found out, and so it's up to the village. They've been cut off from communication. The Home Guard have been shot. This is a really violent film. The Home Guard have been shot and killed. Later on, some evacuee children are threatened with death as well. So this village is cut off. There's no way to kind of communicate. And the clip that we're going to see now is Mrs. Collins, the postmistress, who has the phone exchange. Obviously, there's someone guarding her day and night, and this is what happens.
Cooked, I'm afraid. But I've got these left over. You Germans are partial to sausage, aren't you? Help yourself. Don't wait to be asked.
You're a sensible woman. You'd do better for yourself to accept the situation.
Well, it's been a very pleasant surprise, really. After the way the papers have been carrying on about you Germans being fiends in human form and sticking babies on the ends of bayonets. Sugar?
Babies on bayonets? What would be the advantage?
That's just what I say. Oh, you need the courage. You don't look at all that sort of man to me. A regular family man. I should take you for.
I'm not married, but I have 2 fine sons who will soon be old enough to fight.
You don't say. Well, I'm broad-minded myself, and accidents will happen. That silly pepper pot. I'll do it. I never had any children myself. Mr. Collins blamed me for it, and I blamed him. And then he was taken. So we never found out. Ah! Hello, Upton. false bombardier, too. Oh, well, better see what the old girl wants. Hello? Hello?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Is Mrs. Collins in? She's out. Can I help you? It's the 5 o'clock collection. Mrs. Collins asked me to tell you there isn't any mail today. Isn't any? None at all. Oh, well, good day then. Good day.
So that's, I think, quite a shocking scene, and this film is violent, and people die that you have come to care about. Again, it's very kind of cross-class. We've got Mrs. Collins. We've got this. This is the one where Clone Hurd has the gun, and her and her friend are kind of shooting Nazis as they come up the path. The kind of patrician lady of the manor throws herself on a grenade to save the evacuees that are living there. I think it's a great film. It really is. Certainly of the ones we've spoken about tonight, I think it's just excellent. Really worth seeking out if you fancy watching it. I just coming to the end now. A lot of times in these films, the women in them are saying things like, "This is really going to change things for women after the war, isn't it?" And spoilers. No, not really. And this is a scene. This is a couple from Millions I Cast. This is Eric Portman again. And he's this working class northerner, and Jenny is this kind of upper class woman, and they fall in love. And he says to her at the end, "Look, I'm not going to ask you to marry me until the war's over, because you're one kind of person and I'm another kind of person, and we're pulling together now because we have to, because there's a war on. But what's going to happen afterwards? Is it all just going to slide back to how it was?" So remember, this is a film that was commissioned by the Ministry of Information, and there's still this kind of doubt about how much are these changes really going to stick? How much is going to change as a result? So what did change for women? One of the first things that happened at the end of the war was the state-run nurseries were closed. So what's the first thing you do if you don't want women in the workplace? You make them, you deny them childcare. Men returning always had first dibs on jobs. There wasn't a legal requirement that married women couldn't work, but in practice it was often the case that a married woman would be sacked to make room for a returning man. The trade unions, then as now, perhaps not always on the side of women, and in fact kind of advocated for men to get their jobs back. Women throughout the war, their contracts were temporary, and they were told they were temporary, and they were never paid as much as the men anyway for doing kind of similar kinds of work. So after the war, men back in the workplace, women back in the home, big kind of push for women to have children and society to be rebuilt. And I was trying to think in terms of films as well. I mean, we've seen quite heroic women. We've seen, two elderly women sent off to presumably a concentration camp. We've seen a woman murdered because she took an axe to a Nazi and murdered him. We see other women die in these films. We see Celia in Millions I Cast with their personal heartbreak. So these women they've gone through a lot, and they've been quite heroic, and they've been brave. And I was really trying to think, after the war was over, when's the next time that we see lots of women being the focus of a film, and kind of female heroics and female bravery? I was thinking in America, maybe like blaxploitation in the 70s, or maybe not even till Thelma and Louise, or Silence of the Lambs. In British films, I can't actually think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know everything about later on films, but I can't think of another time when women were allowed to be heroic, and actually it was kind of a group of women that we were following, who were the heroes of the films.
Carver, Langwood Pride.
Oh yeah, but that was wartime, wasn't it?
Yeah, they shot. Well, that's made in '58. They shot more at the end, didn't they?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That's true. And maybe there was less to kind of be heroic about. I don't know, after the war finished. However, there was a time where a working class postmistress could take an axe and kill a Nazi, and that's a good thing. Thanks very much.